Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you from, oh darn, I forgot to take those out. From what way to start? From the DeKalb County Library System. What the heck? And for any of you who have watched any of my videos, you know how fascinated I am with creative link techniques and how to incorporate them in other types of things. I have this one particular class that I like, that I saw something that looked like the exact same thing, except that it was wrapped around the bead. Well, I'll show you. This particular little clasp I like a lot. I don't know if it's showing up. There we go. I like this clasp a lot just because of the detail in the center for the most part. And I wanted to take that and make that into a link. And I saw something like this that looks like the exact same thing, except instead of extending it out into a shepherd's hook, you just wrap the wire around itself to create a link. And there's a net in here. Anyway, it's a day. So I thought that we would do that. I really wanted to do something kind of fun with a different kind of link again. And you know how I like spirals, so that's going to come into play with this particular type of link. So that's what we're doing. We're going to take this link. I started to take this kind of link and just do a bunch of different links like that on the bracelet itself. Yeah, I forget, I can't find my samples. They're around here somewhere. But I decided, and I had them a lot bigger. I had to kind of experiment with how big I wanted the links to be so that they wouldn't be overpowering on the bracelet. But I have some bigger ones, and we're going to use, I don't know what I did with them. We're going to use those later in a necklace. I don't know where they are. If I find them, I'll show them to you because they're really kind of awesome. This is quite alarming. I don't know where they are. So anyway, we're going to do this bracelet along with some beads, and it's a really simple, I'm still looking. It's a really, really simple one because all you need is 20 gauge wire and beads, the beads of your choice. That's it. Wire and beads. What could be simpler? I can't find those things, so I will have to just keep moving. So we're going to make this bracelet. We're going to use our regular pliers, round nose, flat or square nose, well, flat, square nose, and cutters. That is all you need for this, and our 20 gauge wire. And some beads. I'm using these really pretty beads. I'm upcycling again. And those of you who, well, those of you who get the kits will just have a nice selection of beads. What's that? Okay, never mind. So let's get down here to the other camera. I'm just kind of all over the place. Let's get down here to the other camera and get started because I want to see how this is going to turn out, and I know it's going to be pretty. So let's get going. All right, so I have my wire, I have my beads. These are the little links that we're going to make. Aren't those beads beautiful? Very, very simple. 2 components, beads and wire. I love it. I love simplicity. So let's go ahead and get started with that. What we need for each of our links is about 3.5 inches of wire. I've cut 10.5 because I think I'm going to be making 3 of them. And we're also going to create our own beaded link because I love those. So let's go ahead and get going. So the first thing that we want to do to make our link is take our wire, and you want to go down. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off because it's a halfway thing. So it's about, and it also depends on how big you want your lengths to be. I wanted my lengths to end up being about 3/4 of an inch with the loops on the end. And so that, let me measure just to make sure over here. Yep, about 3/4 of an inch for each length, so it's not too big for my wrist. I don't want it to be overpowering. And for that, I need about 3.5 inches of wire in order to end up with a bead that's 3/4 of an inch long. Okay, so what I would do with my little 3.5 inches is go to the center of the wire, which is going to be about, if it's 3.5 inches long, that would be 1.3/4 of the way down. So if you're keeping your wire all together, you can measure that, or you can just eyeball it if you're comfortable with that, or you can go ahead and cut off 3.5 inch pieces. So that you can just kind of look at it and see where your your halfway point is. So let me go ahead, measure out 3.5 inches. There we go, 3.5. And then I'm going to just kind of eyeball where my center is, which is about here. A little bit more than that. There we go. That's about center. And then I'm going to take my pliers. I'm going to take my wire and slide it back to the very back of my pliers. I don't want to get caught up in this back part that's squared off. I want it to be nice and round. So I'm going to go ahead and grasp my wire with my pliers. And then I'm going to take one of the wires and I'm going to wrap it around my pliers. Take it all the way around until I get to the flat part, just like that. And then I'm going to take the other wire and go in the same direction all the way around until I get to the flat part, just like that. Now, because I want this to be a little bit bigger, once we take it off of here, see, isn't that pretty? Neat, huh? So once I take it off of there, I'm going to continue, stop that, to wrap this around my bead. Just make it a nice little wrap around the outside of my wire. Just like that. And do the same thing on the other side. Just wrap it around. This is probably a little sharper than I wanted. I wanted to be nice and round. Straighten it out and wrap it around. Now the way I'm doing it is I'm pushing while I wrap so I can get nice rounded curve instead of a sharp edge. And so this is what I have. And just make whatever adjustments I need. I want to pull this one a little closer to my reps. Like that. And then use my fingers and just adjust it. And there we have it. And this is very, very free form. So you just make the adjustments that you want. Widen that out a little bit. Nice. And I'm just going to keep fiddling with it until I have it the way I want it. So now I'm going to cut this off. What I need to end up, what I want to end up with is a loop right here on each side of my wire. You can either put it in the center if you want. You can put it on the corners if you want. It's entirely up to you. Again, very free form. So it is what you want it to look like. Mine are a little bit off on the corners, like that. I just want one on each end. So what I'm going to do is just cut this off right down here near the bottom of my design here. So I'm going to cut it off right here. Here's my little S in the center. I'm going to cut my wire off right there at the bottom of my little design. So there's my design. There's the end of my wire. I'm going to snip that off. Put that piece to the side, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Cut it off right here. Hold on to that tail so it doesn't go flying off the parts unknown. Here we go. Yes. And now I'm going to make my loop. So here's my little link, and I just need loops on each side of my link in order to link it to the next piece. Now I cut this really long because I want my loop to be up here. And if I cut it long and it ends up where I don't want it, I can just snip off little pieces until I can scoot it up. And I'll show you what I mean. So I want a loop that's big enough in order to link into my bead. So I want to go down about halfway down my pliers in order to get a nice sized loop. Now I'm going to tell you a little secret of something that I like to do, and that is go to the tip of my pliers and grab my wire. Make sure that it's nicely ensconced in between the pliers and not sticking out the back. And I just put a little bit of a turn on it because that way I'll have a really sharp turn in the center and it'll give me a nice clean loop. And then I go down to the halfway point of my pliers and I make my loop. I'm just going to rotate my pliers until I have a nice closed loop. There we go. Now that is a little further on the side than I want. That's what I said. That's why I said it's good to have it nice and long, because now I can adjust it by cutting off the inside of my loop a little bit. Just snip that off. Go ahead and put my hand over this so that this little end doesn't go flying off where I don't want it to go. And now I can, now I can close this up and that will bring the loop further over. Let's see if I cut off enough. Go back down to my halfway point on my pliers and close up that loop. Much better, but I think I'm going to go even a little bit, tiny bit further over. Let's go right here to the inside again and cut off another about 1/8 of an inch. Rid of that little tail and go back down to my halfway point and close up that loop. And there we are. I think that's good. And there's one side. And let's go to the other side. Now I know I'm going to have to cut a little bit off, so I think I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to cut off about 1/4 of an inch. It's better to cut off too little and then cut off more later than to cut off too much. Okay, get rid of that and go down and grab the tip of my wire with my pliers, the very tip, and give it a turn. And notice that I'm making my loop away from the design. So I'm turning away from the actual design of my link. Slide my wire down about to the halfway point, just like I did on the other side, and make my loop. And notice that I'm also holding on to the center of my link because I don't want to pull away from it and cause it to be misshapen. So I'm just rotating until I have a nice closed loop. Here we go. It's a little big. Let's close that up a little more. There. And let's see. Oh, this is perfect. This is perfect. And then you can go ahead and just shape it. I can open that up a little bit if I want it a little further out. And then I can shape it with my pliers or with my fingers until I have my link the way I want it. Yes, I'm going to bring this one over just a tiny bit more. And in order to do that, I need to clip a little more off, just about a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, and close that up. That should bring me over to where I want to go. And there it is. Neat, huh? I like it. And then you just take your fingers and you can shape it a little bit. Shape it the way you want it to look. And I want mine to look as close to these as possible. So this is a little bit bigger, so I'm going to close it up. See how much these are a little closer together. So I'm going to go ahead and close up my loops and bring my wire closer together so it looks like the others. And this one is one of those things you just play with your fingers until you get it to the shape that you want. And again, it's free form, so it's not going to be perfect. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be art. There we go. Nice. Isn't that pretty? I love it. So there's one of my links. Let's do another one. Oh, another thing that you can do, because I'm using 20 gauge wire, which isn't super strong. It's strong enough for this bracelet, but because it is 20 gauge, what I like to do is take my little dollar store mallet hammer and just kind of hammer it a little bit. Because that will cause it to strengthen. It's called work hardening. That's the technical term. Let's give it another little pound. stronger already. And then once you do that, it's probably going to spread out a little bit. So you just go back in and make some, see how my little loop opened up a little bit? So just go back and make some little adjustments. Very, very simple. Ooh, it's really, really, really stiffened up on me, which is perfect. Very nice. Close that up. Stayed closed, very good. And let's do another one. Let's do one more. All right. Again, I'm going to go about 1 3/4 away from the end. I'm just eyeballing it. Go down here to the back of my pliers. And I'm going to bring one of my wires all the way around to the flat part. So just go all the way around until it's flat on my pliers, and then bring the other one around the same way. It's tempting to go the opposite direction, but we brought this one around this way, and we just continue with this one going around the same way until it's flat on my pliers. And slide that off. There's my little, what I call my Superman X, my S. And then I'm going to wrap that around. Let's curve it around. My wire. Let's wrap it around itself. And again, it's hard to explain this on camera, but I'm kind of pushing my wire while I wrap it around, so I get a nice curved shape. It's wrapping. Okay, just using my fingers. Curve that, and this is very straight, so if you want to, you can also use your pliers. Just kind of give it a little curve going around. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Just curve it around. I have a little bit of a sharp bend there that I don't want, so I'm going to take, you would think you would take your round pliers, but actually you take your flat pliers and just squeeze that. It straightens it out a little bit, and then I can round it some more. And the more you work with this 20 gauge copper wire, this is 20 gauge copper, and copper wire really does work beautifully and work harden beautifully. It's very malleable while you're working with it, and it will stiffen over time so that it'll hold its shape after you've made your piece. Now, it's time to clip that off. Here's my shape. It's pretty big, so I'm going to end up squeezing it in so that it's smaller. I'm going to go ahead and snip this off. Again, right here, I have a lot of space here, so I know I'm going to be closing this up, and that's going to push that tip down further. Just snip it off right there at the bottom of my design. And now I'm going to shape it because I want these pushed together closer like this other one. So I'm going to go ahead and manipulate it until the wires are closer together and wrapped around each other, nice and round, like so. Same thing on the other side. Just push them together. And there we have it. Neat, huh? Okay, so now I'm going to make my loop. I know I'm going to have to clip a little bit off. We clipped it down to the end of our design last time. We ended up kind of clipping off about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and clip off that 1/4. And I'm going to hold on to the tip. And when you hold on to the tip, don't put your finger right here on the tip, because if it it's kind of it just what is the word? It just flies out. And if it's going at a high rate of speed, I can't remember the word. It's just like when you jump out of a plane, or not jump out of the plane, eject it. It gets kind of ejected, and it can go right into your finger, and you don't want that. So put your fingers on the side. Or another good way is to grab anything with a little well in it and turn that tip down and clip and let it drop down in there. Ta-da! Oh, it's glue on the bottom. So anyway, that takes care of that. Then I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and clip it off. I heard that. See, you hear it drop down in there. You controlled the cut. You know exactly where it is. You don't have to worry about it being in your carpet or on your floor or hitting you in the eye, which would be bad. Okay, so let's go ahead and take my round nose pliers. Grab the little tip of my wire with my pliers at the tip again, and give it a little bend. Now I'm going to go down to about halfway down my pliers so I can get a nice little loop in. And I'm going to rotate. Now I see people go all the way around, but you can't really control it that way. And it looks better if you just give yourself small little turns and then leave the wire in, but open your pliers and rotate back and give it another turn, rotate back again and so that way you can kind of see what you're doing instead of trying to make the loop all in one fell swoop. Just give yourself some small turns until you have your loop completed. And again, it's a little further over to the side than I want. So I'm going to clip off about 1/8 of an inch or so. Wire, let's close it up. It's all about adjustments. And see where I end up. That's good. I think I'm going to make it a little further over, but let's go to the other one and do that one, and then we'll make our adjustments. Grabbing the tip with the tip of the wire with the tip of the pliers. Make a little bend like so. Go down to my halfway point. And again, I'm making sure that none of this wire is sticking out from between my pliers. It should be nice and smooth here. And I'm going to make my loop a little bit of a turn, open up, rotate back. And when you open up and rotate back, make sure your wire falls again in the exact same place where you were. That's why you don't pull the wire out. You don't want to have to keep adjusting. And there's my loop. Very nice. I'm going to take it over a little further on this side. Clip off a little more. And close that up. Nice. Make whatever adjustments I need to make. Isn't that neat? I love it. Love, love. Make sure that's nice and closed. This one's good. Take my little rubber mallet. Okay. Let's see, do I need to make any adjustments? No, came out pretty good. A little bit of a squeeze. So those are closer together. Squeeze. Nice. Very nice. Okay. Okay, there we go. And my little links. Let's see if that's enough. Now I'm going to do my beads, and my beads are just going to be a simple loop. So all I need for that is enough to make a simple loop. It's not going to be a raft loop, just a simple loop. So I'm going to slide my beads on, and what I need for that is about a 1/2 inch on each side in order to make my simple loop. So what I'm going to do is take my pliers. I'm going to go down about halfway down my pliers. It really doesn't even need to be that big. We're going to go about 1/3 of the way down the pliers. And the only reason I make it a little bit different is because this needs to be a little bit bigger so that I can, one of them needs to be a little bit bigger so that I can hook the actual hook clasp into it. And I want them all to look about the same. I don't want to make just one bigger just because it's on the end. So for this part, I only need to go about 1/3 of the way down my pliers instead of a 1/2. Not too much of a difference, but enough so that it doesn't need to be that much different. Now, if you want to make your bracelet a little bit bigger without adding a lot more beads, you can make bigger loops, and it depends on the look that you want. Okay, so I've got my wire in my pliers about 1/3 of the way down. Nothing is sticking out. I'm going to rotate my pliers until I have a loop. I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do this. And again, you're just making a loop just like you did the other one. Once the little tip is backed up against the long wire, I have my loop. And now I want that to I don't want it to be leaning over here to the side like that. I want the loop to be centered on my wire. And in order to get it to do that, I'm going to go in with my pliers, the very tip, and I'm going to bend back my loop until now it's more upright. So now my loop is kind of on top of my wire, like so. Looks more like a little lollipop. Nicely centered instead of off to the side. And now I'm going to slide my bead on. And I can do this part a couple of different ways. I can either cut it off and at approximately 1/2 inch, make a loop and then keep adjusting, or I can go ahead and bend this back. I want my loops to go the same direction. So I'm going to bend the wire back the same direction as the flat of my loop on the other end, like so. Then I can go in about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. And I can take this long tail, I can bring it over the top, just wrap it over and open up my pliers, wrap back, and just bring the wire all the way around, like so. You can see this has a little bit of space down here that I don't want. So I'm going to go back in and rotate until I get rid of that space. So now it's right up against the bead the way I want. Then I can go in with my pliers right here to the very inside of my loop. And I can cut that off. So I'm right here at the inside of my loop, right against the back of my wire. Snip that off. And go back in and close my loop up. And there's my loop. Ta-da. Easy peasy. Let's do it again. Pretty sure I need 3 more of these. Here's the other way. You can go up and just approximate how much you need. We're going to go about 1/3 of the way down. I can bend back my wire. Go down 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Make my loop just like I did before. Just keep wrapping small little wraps until the tip is touching the rest of my wire. And there we have it. Nice. Go ahead and put my bead on. Bend it back. Go in with my pliers. A little off. I'm going to go in the same direction. Go down 1/3 of the way with my pliers. Bring my wire over. Rotate back, clamp back down. Bring it all the way around under my pliers. Let's check out my loop here. Yes. Clip that off. Right here on the inside of my bead. I mean, of my loop. And it might be a little challenging because you're trying to get in there. What you can do is lift the wire away from the rest of the wire and then go in, and you have a little more leverage, a little more space, and clip. And then just push the wire back down. There we go. Now this side looks a little bit bigger than I want. Let's go in. Yep, see, a little bit bigger. So I'm going to clip off just like I did, excuse me, with the other one. Clip off a tiny little piece. And close up my loop. And now it should be smaller. And there we have it. Here's my second bead. Let's do the third one because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need them all. Let me see if that's big enough. I hope so. See, I was able to use all of my wire. I love it. Make my little loop. Let's go ahead and do the end. Go the way down. Make my loop. Put my bead on. Ah, look at that. Perfect. I even have more than I need. In my wire back. Make my loop. I can see I have a little more space than I want. So I'm going to go back in and turn that down until I get rid of that space. Now my loop is resting right there on the top of my bead where I want it. I'm going to pull that out to the side a little bit, just enough so I can get in there with my pliers and snip. Snip with the tip. A bit more. It's already starting to stiffen up, which is awesome. Come on. See, look at that. I did all of that with what, 10.5 inches. I didn't cut any more wire. That's amazing. I love it. Let's push that down. Close up my loop. Spin that back a little bit more because I want it nicely centered over the bead. So let's spin that back so it's nicely in the center. Just go back a little tiny bit more. And there's my third one. Yay. Now let's put it all together. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, so I'm going to open up one of my bead loops. And the way to do that, make sure that's closed, nice and tight. The way to do that is to not pull the links apart because then you'll ruin your circle. Instead, just flip it up away from the bead. And slide the bead loop into the link loop. Close it up. And there we go. Let's do the same thing with the next link. Just open that up to the side. Slide my link into the bead loop, close it up. Same thing with the next one. And you can open either of these links because they're all open. So it's really easy to open it up and close it back. Open the next one. Slide it on, close. Little tiny space in there. Let's close that up. And last but not least, let me measure. You want to measure and make sure it's not getting too big. And look at that. I think we are perfect right here. Yes, this is very good because I'm going to do a wrapped, a beaded link. So instead of this one, I don't need this one. I'm going to use this to make my hook. So let me go ahead and take that off of there. Yay. And for the hook, I'm going to need about 3.5 inches of wire, 20 gauge again. It's not my bullet. I'll measure it a little bit. Okay, 3.5 inches. 1, 2, 3.5. That off. And what I'm going to do is go about 1.25 inches down from the tip. Yeah, let's go ahead and measure. About 1.25 inches from the tip. There we go. And then I'm going to bend. Let's get that little curve out. I'm going to fold the wire over until the two, the short end and the long tail and short tail are close to each other. And then I'm going to squeeze it until they're nicely side by side. Squeeze. And you can do that with your fingers, or you can do that with your pliers. It's entirely up to you and how strong your fingers are. You can get, once you get to a certain point, you can go ahead and take your pliers and squeeze it the rest of the way. Nice and easy. Like so. Now I have my two ends side by side. I'm going to get this little curve out so it's not crossing over to the other side. Let's not go to the other side. So now I have my two ends side by side. Now what I'm going to do is go down about 1/2 inch from the bottom. And I'm going to bend that tail up and away from the other wire, like so. Just the short tail, just bending that up, like so. Then I'm going to take my flat pliers and I'm going to grasp both of my wires. Make sure they're nicely grasped in your pliers. And I'm going to wrap that short tail around the long tail. So nice and easy, just wrap that around once and twice. And it's a short tail, so I'm going to use the pliers to go the rest of the way. And what you want to make sure is that your wires don't shift, because you want these to stay side by side. So let's go ahead, bring that around the rest of the way. I'm giving myself 2 full wraps, and I'm going to end it right here in between these 2 wires. So this is where I want the tip to stop, right in between those 2 wires, and I will show you why. So I'm going to clip that off. And again, I'm going to find a little well to put this down into, because it's tiny and I can't hold it. Snip that up, drops right down into my little my little thing, my little spool. And then this little tip, I want to push it down. I don't want it to stick up and scratch me later. Now, the reason I wanted this little tip to end up in between my two wires here is so that, get this straight, there we go, so that when I make my hook, it's underneath the hook. It's not on top, it's not on the side, it's going to be underneath the hook that I use to latch my bracelet together. Clever, huh? Yes, it is. Okay, so now I'm going to make the loop on the other end. So what I want to do is bend my wire back to the side, like so, just a little bit. Grab my round nose pliers. Give myself a good loop. So I'm going to go about halfway down my pliers again. Wrap the tail of my wire around until it won't go any further underneath. Then I'm not going to move or slide the wire out. I'm just going to open my pliers, wrap around, or just rotate around, clamp back down again, and then bring that wire all the way under until I have a loop. Ta-da! I'm going to hold on to that. And I'm going to take this tail and I'm going to wrap it around just to close up my loop. That's it. And again, it's going to be nicely underneath here, underneath where my loop, my hook is going to go. Let's get it nice and neat. Let's clip that off so that that little tail ends up right in between the two pieces of wire again. Clip it. Push that end down. Everything's shifting. Push that end down until the little tip kind of settles in between the other wires. Close as you can get. Nice. And then we're going to, I need to round this out a little bit. I can see it's a little bit off. So let's do that. There we go. Nice. Nice. Okay. And now here's my little end over here. So I want to make my hook to fall over that. There it is. Okay. So what I'm going to do, here's the little tail end that I had. I'm going to bend my wire back away from that end, like so. Then you can use, I didn't say it to use a cylindrical item because you don't need to. You can use the back of your pliers in order to make your hook, or you can take a pen or a pencil. It just depends on how big you want your little hook to be. It doesn't have to be huge. I'm going to take the tip of this pencil just to give you an example. You can use the back of your pliers again. You can use a pen or a pencil. Just depends on your size, the size that you want it. And then I'm going to bend my wire over my little cylindrical item. Bend it, wrap it around until I have a hook. Just going to keep wrapping because I like mine very close to my knots, my loops, my wraps. Get this to focus a little better. It's trying. Okay, there we go. So there's my little hook, my little shepherd's hook. I'm going to bend it back just a little more. Boop. Like so. I like this nice and close. So I'm going to squeeze this little tip down. And then last but not least, isn't that neat? I said I was going to make a beaded link, and then I didn't do it. So you're going to get another lesson. So here is the plain one. And then that's why I have so much left over. I was like, oh, I have so much wire left over. Now I'm going to take the tip of my pliers on the very tip of my link, and I'm just going to give it a little tweak. And there is my hook. Isn't that awesome? Now, if we were going to stop with that, this would be it. This would be my hook. But I promised you we were going to make a beaded hook, and I didn't do it. So let me get another piece of wire. This is what happens. Get carried away. So 3.5 inches again. 1, 2, 3.5. There we go. Off. Virginia, 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 and Virginia. So once again, let's fold this over. Go down about 1.25 inches from the tip. Let's measure, because I know people are more comfortable when they measure. About 1.25. 1.25 inches. Now fold my wire over until the long meets the short, side by side. And I'm going to squeeze those two ends together. Those two long wires. One short, one long. Squeeze them together. There. Now I'm going to take my pliers and squeeze it a little bit closer. There. Nice. Straighten that out. Go. Nice. Then I'm going to go down about 1/2 inch away from the tip of my short wire. Let's hold on to it with this. And I'm going to bend the wire up. I showed you how to do it with your fingers before. Now I'll show you how to do it with the pliers. Bend the wire up and then wrap this little short end around the long wire, making sure that these wires don't shift. You don't want them to start folding over each other. You just want to wrap that around the bottom. And you really only need to wrap it once, depending on how you want it to look. If you want a nice big wrap down at the bottom, you can wrap it a couple of times and then wrap the other one a couple of times around, but you don't have to do that. And that is what you have, the option that you have when you don't have a bead on it. So I'm going to wrap that around. It really only needs one wrap. Squeeze that a little tighter together. One full wrap. There. I'm going to clip that tail off right here in between my two wires. Okay. Push that tail down, that little end. as close to this long wire as I can get. So it's nice and smooth, very good. Then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to grab my bead. I remembered this time. Very good, Virginia. Slide it on. And now we're going to make a loop. That is why I had so much wire left over before, Virginia. Okay, so I'm going to bend my wire back. This is the flat of my wire with the two wires together. I'm going to bend my wire over to the side, like so. Grab my round nose pliers, shifting. Slide my wire down about a third of the way down my pliers, a third to a half, depending on how big you want your loop to be. It doesn't have to be huge. Okay. Wrap the tail of my wire over my pliers until I can't go any further. Then I'm going to open my pliers, rotate, and close back down, and then bring that wire under my pliers. There's a little space in there, so I want to get rid of that. I'm going to turn it down a little bit closer to my bead, but I want to wrap it around a little bit in that space. So we'll leave a little bit of space there. Now I can do this one of two ways. I can leave my pliers in here and wrap it around, or I can take my pliers out and use and hold them like this and wrap it around. It's entirely up to you. I think I've showed you this way. Let's show you this way. I'm going to leave that in there. Just leave that in the pliers like so. And I'm going to wrap that tail around in between my bead and my pliers until I have a nice wrapped loop. And there it is. Now I'm going to clip that off. I want to clip it off right here in between, in the center of my loop. It's because I like the look of it. So again, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a tweak. I'm going to bend this so that it's rounded, like so. And I'm going to clip this off very close so that the little tip ends up in the center of my loop. So here's my tip, and there's the center of my loop right there. Let me turn it. Yeah, there's the center of my loop. Here's the little tip. Cut that off. There's all kinds of stuff gathering up down there. And where is it? Where are you? There it is. And I'm going to push that little tip down. There we go. Until it's hidden right in between the other loops. Nice. Okay, now it's time to make my shepherd's hook. Where's the end? Where are you? Where's the tips? The tip is so beautifully hidden. There it is. Nice. So here's the little tip. I want my shepherd's hook to go over the tip so that it won't have any way to snag you or your clothes. So I'm going to bend my little tip back just like we did before, like so. Sure everything's all nicely lined up. Grab my pliers. I'm going to use the pliers this time because I showed you how to do it with an ink pen. Just grab my pliers, go back to the back of my pliers. Make sure you're away from that squared off part because you don't want a square shepherd's hook unless you do, and you can. Here we go. I've got about 1/8 of an inch of space in between my pliers and my bead. Don't need too much space in there, just a little bit. And then I'm going to bring my wire over my pliers. Scoot it back to the back a little bit. I'm going to a little bit bigger than that. And bring my wire over the top of my pliers and down until it touches the bead. And there we go. Straighten that out a little. There we go. And now I'm going to take my pliers, and you can see, where's the other one? You can see this one's just the tiniest bit smaller, not really much. So it just depends on how big you want your loop to be. Push that as close as I can get. Go in with the tip of my pliers, and then bend the bottom of my loop up. Till I have that little curve. And there is my hook. Neat, huh? Awesome sauce. All right. Now, because I have a bead on this side and a link on this side, I'm going to put this bead on this side so it kind of matches. So there is my link. So let's open up my loop, slide on my link on my hook, close that back up, make sure it's nice and close. No space in between those wires. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our bracelet. Scooch this over a little bit more to center. Go, yeah. There's our bracelet. Neat, huh? I love it. Okay, there. I think it's a little more clear now. Isn't that neat? There's our bracelet. What do you think? I like it a lot. I love these little links. Very nice. Very, very nice. I'm going to put it on. And because I really like this, I don't like to think that it can just slide off like that. So I always push it really close together. I'll push it a little bit past the bead so that it'll, when it springs back, it'll rest against the bead. So a little bit back and then adjust it so that it's as close to the bead as I can get. And then it gets caught here. It won't just come out. I just like it like that. Okay, let's put this on. See, so a little bit askew. Let's fix that. Get a little closer. Boop. See, nice and close now. So now when I put it on, it snaps. Snap into place, and it won't come off until I take it off. Yay! Okay, let's put you on. Oops, I thought I had it on. I don't know why I do this to myself. I do this on camera all the time. Like, oh, let's just put it on. Oh, fumble, fumble, fumble. There we go. There it is. There it is. And look at that. The clasp is so close to the rest of it that you can tell it's a clasp, but it doesn't just yell clasp. It's part of the design. Ta-da! Isn't that neat? I love it. There it is. That's it. It came out perfect. One of the neatest things about doing these kinds of links is you can measure as you go. You can put a few of them on and measure your wrist and make sure it's going to fit. Because I don't like mine to be hanging all down here. I like it to be a little bit smaller, a little bit closer to my wrist so that I can see the bracelet without it being obnoxiously not in my face, but just obnoxiously large and dangly. But that's just me. Ah, there it is. There's my bracelet. Lovely, 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 lovely. I love it. There it is. That's what we're doing today. That's our bracelet for today. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you do at jewelrygen20@gmail.com. That's JEWELRY 20@gmail.com. Or you can comment on the library Facebook book page where you find the link to the video. And if you make one, please post it because we really like to see what you do. I like to see what you do. You can either post it on the library Facebook page, or you can send it to the Jewelry Gen email, and I'll post it on the Facebook page. Either way, I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, tell me too, because I want to know why. And if you have any ideas or suggestions, I would love to hear them too. I would just love to hear from you one way or the other. So until next time, have a great week, have a great weekend, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.